Pressing buttons. And we are. Hello, everybody. Glad you're here. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight. Glad you are a fish keeper and that you want to spend time with us. That's pretty darn cool. So thanks for being here. We are just getting all the screens up and running because you know how we roll. Got to have the screens. Got to have the screens.
It's Friday Eve.
It's Friday. It's Friday Eve.
It's
apparently.
Friday Eve.
That is
That's right.
true. And that is a wonderful thing. By the way, did you turn off the dehumidifier and forget to turn it back on again? Because it's been really quiet down here today. Now I'm starting to feel the humidity a little bit on this side. Not so much over there.
I never ever remember to turn it back on again. But whenever I come back down the next time, it's on. So I just know that you're hearing, something is wrong and you're like, gotta turn it back on. So there you go.
You can hear, right? I'm sure a lot of you can relate. You can hear the tiniest differences wherever your aquariums are. If your water level's a little bit low, if your filters are they're not running optimally. It could be a sponge filter. You're like, that bubbling sounds slightly off. I better go check and see what's going on. It can be to the point where if you have an aquarium and you have a lid on the aquarium and it's open.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes the filter will actually make a slightly different noise.
Yeah.
And you'll hear it right away. And that's just the fish keeping that we do. So very glad that everybody is here and happy that you're hanging out with us because it's going to be a fun night. So tonight we have a topic that I'm hoping that many of you can relate to, and that is I've picked some fish. And these are fish that are different because I know I actually did a video on this probably 3 or 4 months ago where I said, these are fish I would never keep again. And I'm pretty sure the fish that I have on this list are not any of the fish that I discussed in that video a few months ago. So this is a different list. As you can imagine, when you've kept hundreds of different types of fish, I can come up with more than just 5 that I'm like, nah, I probably won't keep these again. And I can pretty much guarantee you 2 of my 5 will be surprising to people who are watching this because I just think they're surprising. Now,
one of them I was surprised.
Now, do you have, because again, I just kind of give you this list and then we don't really discuss it ahead of time, so you're going to have your own picks, I'm sure.
That I do.
Yeah. So it should be fun. Want to say thank you to everybody here, moderators. I see Noelle's in the house. I saw
Hi,
Second
Noelle.
Floor.
Hi, Second
I
Floor.
saw Lynn. So
Hi, Lynn.
thank you for being here. Glad that
Hey,
you're hanging
y'all.
out with us. So,
And hey to all you lurkers.
absolutely. Now, let's just get into this videos that we had over the past week on Sunday, Primetime Aquatics. I did a cloudy water video update, 10 reasons why your fish tank might be cloudy, and of course what to do with it, what to do about it. So if you haven't seen that, check it out. Also on Sunday on Container Joy, your plant channel, I like to just call it the plant channel.
Oh, sure.
You did what?
I did something crazy with a hanging basket just because that's what I do.
So if you like hanging baskets, Container Joy is the place to be. Monday on the Tank Talk podcast, it was really fun. So 2 weeks ago, John sat down with Joanna and they talked about aquascaping.
We did.
Last week, I got to sit down with Lisa and we talked about snails of all different types.
Still haven't seen it. I have to see it.
What?
I know. Oh my gosh. I know. I've been so busy this last week. I'm going to actually write it in my notebook.
I think the theme for tonight is don't be like Joanna.
Because
you should see that podcast episode.
Hanging out with Lisa for like an hour talking about little snailies.
Yep.
Love it.
It was a lot of fun. Yesterday on the Small Scape on your fish channel, you did
Yes. I did some
combinations.
Some combinations that I consider them really stellar combos, fish and other things combos, and then ones that are just kind of not so much. And I was just really curious what y'all thought about that because everybody has their own opinions.
Sure. Unless their opinions have been given to them.
No.
And then they don't have their own opinions.
No, you
Maybe
gather
somebody faked an opinion.
information gathering and then you share your own.
So today, Prime Timers, you got a science series video.
Ooh.
And then on Sunday, I think I've got another one it's one that I did a long time ago. Again, it's like a 6 or 7 year old thing. And I really wanted to update it with new information, updated this decade
Right.
information. So hopefully that will be a good one. Now we've got some places we're going to be. You realize, I don't know if you realize this, Saturday is the last free Saturday we have for, I think, the rest of the month.
Really?
Or at least the next 2 Saturdays after that we're busy. So on the 15th, we're going to be at the Greenwater Aquarius Society swap. In
That's good
Tinley
because it
Park.
feels like it's been forever.
Yeah. And our website will be updated no later than Tuesday of next week. So if you're somebody who likes to order fish, and I am telling you right now, we have got a lot of fish that made it wonderfully through quarantine, very, very healthy. And holy cow, if you're into Cory cats, you're going to really appreciate this. Maybe what we'll do next Thursday is I'll kind of highlight some of the fish that we've got kind of floating around in here as a little side note thing. But
Rebecca wants to know, am I way louder than
is that
you?
true?
Is it, would anybody else like it? Because that's not typical. Usually I'm much quieter.
Okay, well I just turned Joanna's mic down a hair.
Is that better?
We love to hear
Yeah.
that feedback.
Oh,
by
yeah,
the
for
way.
sure.
So if something's ever off audio wise, feel free to say something. So I just turned her mic down a little bit. Well, the thing is with your mic.
Oh, let's see. Meyer Doc says that I seem more normal than usual, which maybe sounds louder, you know.
I see muted. So let me hold on. Up. Slightly up. Okay. Maybe.
Now Whip says, I can't hear Joanna. Is she even here? Yes, I'm here. It's me.
Okay.
It's me, Whip.
So hopefully that sounds a little bit better. What was I going to say? Hold on. I lost it, man. Oh, yeah. So Greenwater, we'll maybe do something next Thursday where I'll talk about some of the fish. It's pretty cool. Next thing is Saturday the 23rd. We're going to be in Minnesota. We're going to be in Minneapolis at the
You said it wrong.
Minnesota?
No, we're going to be in Minnesota, eh?
Okay, well, that's where we're going to be. And we're going to be at the Minnesota Aquarium Society Expo. Never been there. Looking forward to it. I really need to figure out when I am speaking so I can let you all know that in the next couple weeks if you're going. So that is where we're going to be. Now, like I said, we do have something to talk about tonight, and that is fish I will never keep again. And before we get into it, Fish Fam Link says current viewers 290, max 290, all-time max 423. Wow, you've got Fish Fam's got the stats, man.
What's the dates for Minnesota? Whip says he missed it.
Only the 20. Oh, sorry, it's only Saturday the 22nd. So it's a one-day awesome thing. Holy cow! Old McDonald has a car. That is true. This Saturday is the beloved daylight savings time thing. So we get to
Finally.
spring ahead.
It gets lighter earlier, and I'm a morning person, so
I don't
hot dog.
understand why. I know that people have so many disagreements, right, in today's world. But the one thing I think I've never heard anybody disagree with this statement. Everybody agrees that when we spring ahead, we should never turn the clocks back. I have never heard a single person be like, oh, you know, when we turn the clocks back and we lose all that daylight in the fall and the winter, that's a glorious thing. I've never heard anybody say that.
Well, you get an extra hour of sleep. I kind of like that.
One day, and it's not worth ruining the next
How about
6 months.
if just by the next day after that, you change the clocks back?
No. Oh, yeah, okay, that's a great idea. She's real funny.
One day with extra sleep.
Yep. Okay, we got to talk about this. We got to talk about fish that I don't know if I'll keep them again. Some of these fish are awesome. I promise you, there are people here today that have these fish and love them. And I would like to say from my whole heart and soul, if you have these fish and you enjoy them, that's what matters. It doesn't mean that they're bad fish. It doesn't mean that you need to get rid of your fish like you really would. And it doesn't mean I'm trying to diss your fish.
Right?
Don't
be a
that would be
hater.
another shirt. Don't diss my fish, bro.
That would be a good one.
Yeah.
You know what I'd have on mine, right?
What? Don't diss my fish?
Well, what
Anyway, we don't even need to know about it.
No.
Okay. So here we go. Are we ready? Are we ready for the fish?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Because I have number one. But before we do, Cody James, thank you so much for becoming a prime timer. Thank you very much for doing that. Okay, my number. Do I want to do this as my number one? No.
Are you doing it in order?
I'm not going to do it in order. because
Okay.
I don't want to start out that way. I
Do it-
want to start out with something that's a little bit more obvious
Okay.
to some. And Em, thank you very much for the super chat. What's the oldest fish you have? Raphael cat. It is at least 15, 16. No, it's probably 16 or 17 years old right now.
And what's the lifespan?
They can go 30, 40 years.
30 to 40. I thought
Yeah.
like 20.
No, Raphael cats can live a long time.
Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah, Raphael cat, awesome fish. Okay, my number one. My number one are these bad boys right here. So this is the Aratus cichlid. It's an Mbuna cichlid.
You mean?
The Aratus cichlid is actually very beautiful, as you can see. At least the bottom picture is. Now, here's what happens. I'd be willing to bet, if you've ever kept cichlids before, what a lot of people do is they get drawn into cichlids because they go to PetSmart or Petco and they look at their mixed cichlid, African cichlid tank, and they
Sure.
see these yellow and black striped fish, and they are gorgeous. And you're like, you know what? I'm going to start a cichlid tank, and boom, this is one I want to throw in there. Now, there's a whole bunch of reasons why I will absolutely never keep this fish again. Reason number one. The reason why we have two different looking fish here is that the top fish, those are males. The bottom one is a female. So if you buy this fish and you wind up with males, you wind up with what, I don't mean to be offensive, a rather unappealing looking fish at the top compared to at least the one on the bottom. So when they're small, they all look yellow with the black stripes. As they get older, the males get that very, very dark, and sometimes they get much darker than that. And yeah, whether or not you think that's appealing is up to you. I personally am like, nah, I could do without that. Second reason, when you're grading Mbuna in terms of aggression, these are usually right at the top, right? The Aratus and the entire Aratus sort of family, very, very, very aggressive. They're gonna be your tank boss. They are absolutely gonna terrorize and chase other fish. I put these in with the Demasoni, with the Kenii, especially males that want to breed. These can be big time aggressive fish. So not only do you get a fish that turns basically black with gray stripes, you wind up with extraordinary aggression. And so because of that, no thank you. I'm not dealing with that. I've got an Mbuna tank right over here by my head. Those yellow fish, I got yellow labs, Pseudotropheus silosi, and I would easily put in like Rusties, or if I had a larger tank, ACI. Those are really great Mbuna that are not very aggressive. These guys, no thank you.
No.
Now, do you want to share with, you didn't tell me anything, so I
No.
don't have any visuals, but if you have one that you want to share, you can go ahead and do that now.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
For those of us who love the Scarlet Baddis, they are so cute, so tiny. I think they are really the best example of a completely beautiful fish shrunken down to super micro nano size. However, my suggestion is you don't go to the store and just say, oh, that's also a Baddis. That's kind of cool. Wouldn't that be cool to get a different kind like the Baddis assamensis? That would be fun. No. Totally different. Super mean. And I named him Killer. There you go.
Yeah, so Baddis assamensis is, it almost looks like, if you're familiar with the Calvus cichlid.
I could see that.
So it's kind of got that shape. So it's got that menacing sort of nose, and they don't get very large, but not as colorful. I actually really like that fish. So there's a chance that fish could wind up back in our fish room, unbeknownst
If
to
you have him by himself.
But beknownst to me, well, it just needs to be in a tank with
If you're,
like-minded fish.
you know what, within the nano world here, I'm not all about finding a tank that's filled with confrontation and trying to balance that. I don't want any part of that. I want a peaceful tank.
But to be clear, the Scarlet Baddis is really cool. The Tiger Baddis
Oh
is really
yeah,
cool.
yes. I
Yeah.
would actually like to have a Tiger Baddis at some point,
Yeah.
which I think I tell you that like
And
once a month.
we have some Scarlet Baddis. I think there's 3 of them in the Nano 125
So
back there. I
cute.
just saw them this morning. They were eating. So
cute.
yeah, it's a really cool fish. Okay. I have my number 2, and I'm going to kind of skip around on my list here. So my number 2 Who does number 2 work for? This one's going to be easy, and I think a lot of people would probably agree with me on this one. The common pleco.
Do you see
All
what
right.
Whip said?
No.
I am familiar with the Calvus now. Thanks, Jason.
Yeah, that's a pretty awesome fish. So the common pleco, I'm sure a lot of you, I know I have, especially before the days of the internet when people would tell you, oh, the fish just grows to the size of the aquarium, it's going to be fine. And then inevitably, and it's usually when somebody gets a 4-foot tank, like when I had my 60 gallon, which is the same length and width as a 55, just a slightly taller. Well, I've got a 4-foot tank, and now I can get my common pleco, right? You just throw your pleco, and you're like, oh, it's only going to grow maybe to a foot. That is a lie, man. That thing bypassed a foot inside of, well, it was 55 gallons or 60 gallons, so it wasn't a huge tank, but probably within a year, and I got him when he was just an inch or so, and it went by a foot, and probably within a year or so, and maybe a year and a half. I don't remember. It was a long time ago. But then you're like, what am I supposed to do with this fish? And so the reason I would never buy one of these again. Now it can work. I know, Whip, you've got some really large tanks. John, KG Tropicals, he's got some really large tanks. He's got a common pleco, and I think it's a 240 or a 360 or whatever. That's totally fine. I mean, if you've got the tank size for that, no problem. But I don't. The largest tank I have are 125s, and that's just absolutely not going to cut it, because you're talking about a fish where it could get to be around 24 inches, and it's not just that they're long, but they're big bodied. They can be tall bodied fish. They will uproot all of your plastic plants. Forget live plants. That's not happening. They don't really eat algae or anything. They just kind of sit there. They're not super exciting. And then they just make an absolute mess when it's time to eat. So I don't see myself ever buying a common pleco, because even if I had a monster tank, I think that there are other larger type catfish that I would use as scavenger fish that would be far more interesting and more active. So
Okay,
that's my number 2. Never again with the common pleco. I'm at a point where I don't know why they sell those fish.
Yeah.
There's such a limited use case for them. You literally have to have, I would say comfortably, a really, if it's going to be a 6-foot tank, it needs to be at least 3 feet wide to make it make sense. But really an 8-foot tank or larger, and almost nobody's got that. So why sell those? Just go with the bristle nose and be done with it, because that's a bad idea.
Oink's here.
What's up, Oink? Rat Poison, thank you so much for the super chat. Would a true Siamese algae eaters eat black molly fry? Maybe full grown. Maybe, but I haven't found them to go out of their way to really interact with most other fish. So, but full grown, I mean, you're looking at a fish that's 5-ish inches or so, maybe 6. Could it eat little tiny fry? Possibly. Is it fast enough to do it? 100%. Okay, you got something?
No.
That's it? You had one fish? A fish you would never...
Yeah, like where it's just a blanket statement, like, phew, I'd stay away from that.
Okay.
And that's,
So-
yeah, because I have to back it up with a particular reason, you know?
No, you don't. You could just be like, I hate this fish.
No.
Why
it's
not?
No. Because there's other levels of, like, not, you know, like, I don't want to, if the stream was, I don't want to recommend this to everyone. Like, I've done videos like that, but not like your list. I don't have any other examples, because I keep peaceful community nano tanks.
Nathan wants to know if we have pea puffers. So recently had over 100 of them, but they went to the swaps. But you took some, right?
I did.
And we have, yeah, you have them
I
upstairs.
do. I haven't named them yet, and they've only briefly made an appearance. I don't know if anybody spotted them. I kind of alluded that there were a couple of little occupants in a little shot that I did. I don't know if anybody saw them. They were kind of like a little Easter egg.
Okay.
2 little Easter eggs.
All right, my next one.
Get
This
it?
is
'Cause I
one.
like little eggs.
Yeah, that was hilarious. So my next one. This is one that my guess is a lot of people haven't kept. I did. It was a long time ago, and I swear, okay, this is another one. I'm not doing this ever again. And that is the black shark. Now, The black shark, when you typically find them at a pet store, one, they're usually pretty small. And when I bought mine, again, this was years and years and years ago, when I bought my black shark, it was probably a couple inches, and they basically look like red tail sharks, only they're completely black. So they look kind of cool. Again, I guess part of it was when they tell you the lie, this fish is only going to grow to the size of your aquarium. Well, that's not necessarily true, and they don't necessarily tell you how big these things are going to get. Looks like a carp, that's because that's what it is. And by the way, rainbow shark, red tail shark, it's a carp, right? It's the same family as a carp, but who's going to buy a red tail carp, right? So here's your rainbow carp.
Excellent point.
I don't want it anymore.
It's a carp, yeah. No, but if you call it a shark, then guess what? Now you got something that's marketable. So the black carp, otherwise known as the black shark, couple of reasons why I'm never doing this fish again. Reason number one, they get big. A lot bigger than your red tail sharks and your rainbow sharks do. They can go in the right size tank. I've seen these things 18 inches. Even in smaller tanks, they can grow to a decent size. Mine was probably 6 or 7 inches and still had plenty of room to grow before it passed on. But they don't grow fast, right? So they're not super fast growers, but you have to be aware that they are going to grow fast. The other reason I didn't particularly like this fish is it was like a red tail shark in terms of its aggression. So now I've got this fish that's getting large, and I've also got this fish that's chasing everybody else around, and it's chasing all my, not necessarily community fish, but the lesser fish. So I've got an aggressive fish, I've got a fish that's growing large, and then as it grew larger, I really wasn't all that fond of the look because it wasn't super like jet black. It became more of just a kind of tannish gray. And so now I've got all these combinations of factors. I'm like, I've got a tannish gray carp that's chasing my other fish that's getting too big for my tank. So yeah, if I were going to do it again, I would just get a red tail shark or a rainbow shark or one of the albinos and be a lot happier because they're not going to get as large. I know what to expect. Yeah, they're going to be aggressive, but they're not going to get so big where they're like whooping up everybody. So I would just recommend if you ever see the black shark and you're looking at it and like, wow, this is really cool. It's basically just a version of the red tail shark. Yes and no. Larger to be sure and not really as colorful, but you get all of the aggression.
Slam Boy said, everyone go to the big box pets and stores and act like a newbie to see what they tell you.
Oh my gosh.
That would be a very fun undercover video. That'd be fun.
Just go there. And
Yeah, just go to like a bunch of different pet stores and just give them like a tank size or something.
that would be
and
fun.
be like, can I, I've got this 10-gallon. Can I get those? Can I get like 10 of those really beautiful yellow and blue fish?
The other thing that would be fun is, you ever seen those short form videos, or sometimes they're long form, where the person will go and ask random people on the street like just the simplest questions in the world, like
And
how
then-
many states are in there in the
They
U.S.?
say yes to everything?
Yes, and they're like, I don't know, 45?
Yes.
Yes. Well, you could do that with like pet store employees, but that'd be kind of mean. I don't know. I don't think I would do it, but yeah. By the way, if you got fish that you would never keep again, I want that in the comments because I'm already seeing a couple that I'm like,
Iridescent shark.
Iridescent shark, had those. Absolutely. I should have added that to my list. The iridescent shark is one I absolutely would never keep again. First of all, I could never keep those things alive much past like 7 or 8 inches, and I know why now, because they stress so easily. The iridescent shark stresses very, very easily. They're bouncing off the glass. So it's just a bad situation. They're really, really crazy active, and they get massive. Now, when I say massive, I mean, I've seen these things at like 3.5 feet. So, and when they get that long, they also get they get taller bodied and wider. So it's just a horrible fish to try to put in an aquarium. I mean, if you've got a massive, many thousands of gallons, then, and they want to be in groups. So you got that issue as well. The other one I saw somebody say was a Chinese algae eater. I didn't put that, believe it or not, I did not put that on my list because I do like the golden variety of those fish. And as long as I have them in the right setup, and I used to keep them with cichlids, I actually highly recommend them in a an African cichlid tank, they can work out very, very well. They don't work in community tanks. They definitely don't work with wide-bodied fish like angels, discus, severums. Yeah, that worked out okay, but because sometimes they'll attack the slime coat. But if you've got them in with African cichlids, I love that combination. In fact, so and I do, because the food competition is so high in an African cichlid tank. Believe it or not, they will still graze the surfaces of glass and other surfaces in the aquarium because the food competition is so high. But definitely in a community tank, no. I saw somebody else say piranhas.
Oh.
Would I ever keep those again? No, I think that was one of the ones that wound up in my actual video when I talked about fish I would never keep again. And the only reason why I wouldn't keep them is, one, I can't house them properly. But if I had an 8 or 10 foot aquarium, I just don't think, if that was the only 8 or 10 foot aquarium I had, I don't see myself keeping those fish in that size tank. There's too many things I would want to keep beyond, besides that. But I guess they're interesting, and they can be pretty beautiful, but probably not one I would keep again. But I wouldn't say never ever, but pretty close to never ever.
I thought of one, and then I thought of a second one, but now I've forgotten the first one. So I do have one.
Well, share with the class then.
The Chaka Chaka cat.
Why you got to be ripping on all the fish that I wind up bringing? Well, actually, that wasn't me. That was Luke that brought that fish home.
Yeah, I know. That's tragic. But you know what? It's just not fun. Knowing that you have a fish that only eats live food, and it just sits there and it just looks mean and
But it's
cranky.
not mean. It doesn't even do anything.
It just
So
looks, well, it eats fish.
Yeah, I'm not sure I would ever get one, to be honest, either. But
It's a
it's such an
downer.
unusual fish. I mean, if you want to type in Chaka Chaka cat, it's really cool. His name was Chuck. Maybe if you were
His
around
name
the
was
channel
Chuck.
for a while, you saw videos with Chuck in it. The fish never moves. I mean, to actually see that fish move is like, wow, it just actually moved. You could go in there with your hand, with a net. It didn't care. It's like, you're going to catch me? Fine, I don't care. That fish could secrete a poison. So that was one of its defense mechanisms, and it could actually secrete a poison temporarily to actually paralyze its prey. And yeah, every once in a while we throw culls in there from, I think, when we had the guppy party tank or even the shell dweller tank just to feed it. Luke brought this thing home, not realizing that it was a live fish only fish, and it was basically lived most of its life in a 10-gallon until K-Dog bought it, or I gave it to K-Dog. Yeah. So Riff Waters, thank you so much for the super chat. Have you ever kept Ultima Angels? I'd like to, but the breeder says my water is too high pH at 8.5. Fish are largely adaptable, but they are F1s, F2s, thoughts. Yeah, totally agree. So I have not kept them either. I mean, I tried when I was in my teens, and wherever I was at the time, which was the Chicagoland suburbs, water was way too hard. They didn't make it. That is definitely one where you really don't want to mess around. You really do want to have RO water, remineralize, and keep the water soft and the pH low. I've seen videos where they pull them out of the wild, and the pH can be as low as low 5s, and they are happy into the 4s.
Wow.
So, you try to keep them at a pH of 7+, and maybe some of you have done that. I wouldn't even bother. They're so beautiful and so expensive that I don't want to spend the money. Oh, Rachel, good one, Paku. I had one of those, and that would definitely be one I would never buy again.
Oh, yeah.
Remember? Do you remember the Paku I had? So we had the 75-gallon. We were in the apartment when we first got married. I had a group of silver dollars in a 75-gallon. They were pretty small, and I got a Paku because, again, the person said, hey, yeah, it's fine. Yeah, they get bigger than silver dollars, but it's not going to get that big. You only got a 75-gallon. Fine. So I grabbed the Paku, throw it in the 75. When I first put in there, it was smaller than all the silver dollars and schooled with the silver dollars. So it's kind of cute. That is, other than our tilapia, Timmy the tilapia was the fastest growing fish I've ever seen.
Yeah.
That Paku was a very, very close second. That fish went from quarter size to saucer plate size less than 2 months.
Yeah.
6-8 weeks. And it was still the cutest thing. It would still school with the silver dollars. So they would go back and forth. And you got this big guy, hey, wait for me, everybody, I'm coming too. But when we moved, that was when we had to break down the tanks. And so I took the fish in that aquarium and I brought them, at the time, PetSmart was still taking fish. So I bring in this Paku that was now like this big, and they chucked him in, the standard Petco size or PetSmart size tank, and it looked ridiculous. I mean, I
Oh,
got this big
he's
fish in
probably
this tank.
mad too.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Although you would think that somebody would buy him pretty quickly. Like,
well,
see,
it wasn't there a couple weeks later because I think we went back for something, dog food or something. It was gone.
Yeah.
So somebody was like, "Wow, that's a cool fish." Probably threw him in a 20-gallon for all we know. But yeah, that was. Oh, James, that's a good one. The elephant nose. Yeah, I've had those before. Really, I had a hard time keeping those alive. That one and what was it? The baby whale. Remember that was it was popular back in the 80s and 90s. I think everybody who had fish tanks back in the 80s and 90s tried to buy the baby whale.
It's a baby whale.
I don't remember what the genus and species is. They're not actually whales, but they look like them, and so that was the name for them was the baby whale. They were black fish, and they were kind of cool looking, but good luck keeping those things alive because, man, I could never keep them alive for longer than probably a month, and they would just die. Okay, my next one. Do you have another one you want to talk about? Because I'm going to go into my next one.
Yes,
Yes, you do?
I do.
Okay, bring it. Because my last two are going to be slightly offensive to people. I know it.
Roger and Ruby.
Wait a minute. You love those fish, and you're going to tell me you'd never keep them again?
I did, but I would never keep a pair of them because when they have babies, they have a million babies.
True.
And
so would you care to explain who Roger and Ruby? Because that's not actually the name of a fish.
they were the Midas.
Yeah.
The Midas cichlids. And yes, they were. Oh my gosh, they were just.
They were a
Loved
great couple.
Roger, loved Ruby. Then they had a whole bunch of babies, and it was just, oh my gosh, they would all school together. They would all the little babies would stick by the dad, Roger, and then they would just basically Roger didn't survive the babies because the babies would, and I don't want to hear it again. They just basically they did what they did. I don't even want to hear it.
Okay, so I got to tell the story a little bit better than that.
I didn't
I got
want to
these
bring
fish,
it up.
and in fact, if you look at the species profile of the Midas cichlid, I did a species profile of Midas cichlid, so I followed them basically from the time we got them until they had babies themselves and were quite large. So it's actually a really cool video because I just had all this footage of them because I love those fish. So what wound up happening is I went to a GCCA, just a monthly meeting. They were selling a bag of fish, and the bag of fish was supposed to be firemouth cichlids. I believe that's what they were.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So nobody was buying them. I'm like, all right, I'll buy them for $1. So I bought like 9 or 10. I don't remember exactly how many, but there was a large group of what was supposed to be very small, right? So you have to remember when people hand in fish at these meetings for their BAP rewards, they're really, really tiny, so less than an inch. So it's really hard sometimes to even tell what the fish are. Grab the bag, throw them in a 10-gallon. Within about 2 weeks, I'm like, these are absolutely not firemouth cichlids. I'm looking at them, they're starting to change colors, they're getting really aggressive, even from a tiny size. I'm like, this is not firemouth. Sure enough, as I'm looking at these things, I'm like, telling her, these are either red devils or Midas because this is not a firemouth cichlid. So it turns out they were Midas cichlids, and I wound up keeping. I think I either they killed a few of them, even as small little fish, and then I think I moved some of them out, put some of them in a 40 breeder, like a group of them, and it's all in this video. Then I had to get rid of a couple more, and I wound up with a pair. I kept the largest, what was definitely going to be a male, is gorgeous, had beautiful markings, and then I kept the smaller one that wound up being a female, and she was a solid orange, just gorgeous fish. Threw them in a 75-gallon, nothing else in the tank, just those two. Yeah, they wound up breeding and having babies. And in that video, I show you the babies. There were literally close to 1,000 babies because large Central American cichlids can have a lot of babies, and these fish did. So what the Midas cichlids do is the babies, just like discus, they will eat the mucus secretions off the parents. Well, it got to the point with Roger, the male, these babies, again, like 1,000 of them are eating these mucus secretions, and he's not getting a break. And of course, I'm feeding them live baby brine. I'm feeding them all the food, and they're eating, but they're still picking off of the male. And finally, it got to a point where I think that they had just overfed, and I removed Roger, I think, but it was too late. He was just exhausted. You could just tell he gave his life for his kids. Wound up somehow with probably 60 or 70 Midas. Remember, I had them in the 125, and then I had them for sale, and someone from the GCCA came and bought the entire group, which I was very thankful for, because I'm like, what am I going to do with all these Midas cichlids? Had Ruby, the female, lived a very long time. In fact, she's in fish room tours in the bottom 75 that was in the fish room on the other side.
Sweet.
She got along great. I had her in, with, believe it or not, African cichlids, some random peacocks, OBs. It was a beautiful pairing. Then she wound up in the 125, I believe, for a while. Same general mix. Worked out great until she just got a little older and passed on. So, but that was the Roger and Ruby story.
Roger and Ruby.
Cody, thank you for the super chat. Centerpiece for a 20 long Molly tank. If I'm transferring everything from one tank to another, do I have to cycle still? Nope, usually you're going to be fine as long as you got all your filter media, your decorations, keep them wet so that you still have beneficial bacteria. My suggestion for that 20 is an Empire Gudgeon, especially a male.
Oh.
Yeah, that's what I would do. Keep in mind that if you're wanting to breed fish, there's almost no centerpiece fish that isn't going to eat your babies. The other thing that you could do, so Empire Gudgeon, Pistogramma, Rams, Crebensis, those are all really good options. Checkerboard cichlids, also very cool. Check those out. I think you'd like them. Okay, I didn't share my number 4. Okay, here's where I start getting people probably offended. This dude, oh my gosh, wait a minute. Why are we not on camera? Whatever, doesn't matter. I'm going to get rid of this. Wow, there we go. I said all that stuff and nobody heard it.
That's so funny. They just see you going. Burp, 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 burp.
Now I got to start over again. Okay. So, thank you everybody for telling me I was muted. If I would have paid attention 2 minutes ago. Sorry about that. I just wanted to make sure that you're on your toes. Okay. So, green Severum. Why this fish? I like Severums. Have a bunch of them. I've got one right now in the 125. It's a red spot gold. Love that fish. I had the golds, the red spot golds, the red shoulders, the turquoise. I'm missing at least one. They're great fish. These green Severums in particular, for some reason, are rather aggressive. And it's not just one specimen. These fish to me are always on the more aggressive side. And it's very frustrating for me because it's a type of fish where you want to keep it in a semi-aggressive community tank, and often you're for me, I can't really get it to work. And then the problem is they wind up looking like this, which for me, if I'm going to keep a Severum, I want beauty. Like the red shoulder. I'll keep playing this thing, and maybe the other ones will pop up here in a few minutes. But I really want a gorgeous fish. There's the red shoulder, right? So that's really pretty. Not nearly as aggressive. I don't know. So I won't keep them again. I'm not saying that they're a bad fish. I'm sure a lot of you love them, but I'm not doing the greens anymore. So yeah, I can't do it. Do you have another one you want to share? Because I'm about to get into the one.
No, I think I'm truly out. I don't think I can.
Okay. This last one is going to be the one that I think people are going to disagree with the most. But before we get to that, thank you so much, DMN Dog, for the super chat. Appreciate it. What kind of filtration would you recommend for a Lake Tanganyika community and a 40 breeder? I'm leaning towards a hang-on back or maybe a Fluval 307. Fluval 307 would be pretty awesome. If you want to breed anything, put an intake sponge, whether it's a hang-on back or a canister filter. So Fluval 307 is going to give you a lot of flow for that 40-gallon breeder. Hang on back, if I was going to do that, I would probably do so you got the Aquaclear 70, which would be perfectly fine. You've got the Seachem Tidal 55 or 75, which would be perfectly fine. You've got the Marineland Pro 375. All of those are good. Of course, most of you know I like the Seachems. I like the Marinelands only because that motor is in the water, self-priming, and it's super quiet. But the Aquaclears are a popular option as well. So any one of those would work. Or the Fluval 307 is a great choice too. So I think you're on the right track. Okay. Here we go. My grand finale. Are we ready? Sorry, you're going to be really mad about this. I'm telling you right now. I'm going to make sure when I press this button though that we're not on mute. Yeah, we were on mute. Did you see that? Yeah, and it doesn't matter because once again, there we go. Oh, what's going on here? There we are. There's us, and we're not on mute, so that's awesome. Now let me just make sure that this thing is on mute. Okay, so tiger barbs. I know it's surprising. Some of you are like, "We hate you. I'm leaving. This guy is. I'm not ever listening to him again."
Whacked out, man.
Yep, I understand, but this is a great looking fish. Don't get me wrong. Look at it. It's a very pretty fish. However, for me, I'm going to try to explain this, my methodology. And as I'm looking at them, I'm recognizing these are gorgeous, okay? But every time I keep them, they either fin it the heck out of the fish that are in the tank, or if you don't keep them in really large groups, they beat the snot out of one another until you've basically got one left. The other thing that I'm not a huge fan of is that when they get really big and they start looking kind of bloated, they just get a little gnarly looking. A lot of times you see them at this size and they're gorgeous. They are. I get it. I'm not arguing that fact. But when they get full grown, which most people, their tiger barbs don't get to be the 3 inches that these tiger barbs can be, or slightly larger and get like really, really bloated. Now, here's in QD, you nailed it. You nailed it. So if I were going to keep a barb like this, one, I would definitely I would strongly deal with these issues for the green emerald tiger barb.
The ones, yes.
I have a video,
Aquashella.
species profile of the green emeralds. Those are gorgeous. I'm
Yeah.
willing to deal with those issues for that fish. However, for me, if I'm going to do a barb, somebody already said it, the snakeskin barb. I actually think the snakeskin barb is, again, it's just my opinion. If you think differently, totally cool. You can think differently. But I personally believe the snakeskin barb is a far, far better choice because you can keep those in a 29 gallon. They're really chilled out. They don't beat the heck out of one another. You can keep them in groups of 6 to 8 and not have to worry about is something bad going to happen. You can keep them with all the other fish. In the 125 behind Joanna's head, we've got a group of about a dozen. They are model citizens. They always have been. Whether they were in that tank or the 20 gallon that they were in before that or the 40 gallon before that, they've just always been so agreeable, and they are gorgeous fish, the snakeskin barbs. So I know, and some of you are saying, hey man, tiger barbs, had good luck with them. Keep them, do enjoy them, love them. But big giant groups is the way to go with these guys. And that really means to me a larger tank too. So at least a 75 gallon for me, maybe a 55, but a 75 for sure. So that's what I'm looking for.
Rumsey says, this is really funny. They're the kids at the party. You are wondering where are their parents.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Yep, that is true. Wow. Lost Aussie says tiger barbs are 12 to 15 bucks each over here, which I'm
Wow.
assuming here is Australia. And that's really something. That's a lot of money, especially when you want to get a big giant group to try to cut down on the aggression.
Okay, so what are all the ones? Can you recap for anybody just joining? What are
Recap, yeah. If you're just joining, you're going to have to go backwards and watch the whole live stream over again. And just,
We're not going to tell you. No.
Tiger barbs, the green sevrum and the green sevrum only, the black shark, the common pleco, and the Aratus imbuna cichlid. And then you had...
I had the Batis esmensis, the Midas cichlids in pairs, and Chaka Chaka cat.
Yeah, you had some unusual ones.
I
You
tried.
definitely had some. Okay. All right, let's see here. Now, guess what? We can get into some questions. We can get into some Q&A.
Sweet.
So if you got the questions,
Bring it.
bring it. Richard says, I want a school of 12. If we're talking about tiger barbs, double that. Just trust me. It's going to be a lot easier. You're going to have a lot better time. Bigger groups do better.
Oh, Rick from the Cape says I had 30 in a 90 gallon planted.
There
One of
you
my
go.
favorite tanks
Yeah,
ever.
there you go.
Yeah.
That works. Yeah, it's just usually I don't want to dedicate a large tank. That's another one where if you were looking for, where I think that would be a strong option is if you're looking for a fish with maybe a medium-sized South Central American type of semi-aggressive tank that's like a 6-footer and you're like, hey, I'd really like something that was like a schooling fish. Psh, tiger barbs all day. The other one, which this is kind of weird, because if you would have asked me this question a year ago, if I would have done this video, there absolutely would have been one on this list that is not on this list because I can't put it on the list because we have them.
Oh,
You know what they are?
Buenos Aires.
The
I know. I would
right
too.
in here in that
I would have
75
too.
gallon. If you would have asked me a year ago, I'm like, I hate those fish.
Right.
I literally hate them. And a lot of you know the story, so I'll be quick. We got in a big shipment. All of a sudden, I've got this extra bag. I'm like, what the heck is this? I didn't order these. I'm looking at it. Buenos Aires tetras. I'm like, oh, great. So you send me 100 Buenos Aires tetras that I don't want, don't have any space for. I had to put them in the multi-tank. And who's going to buy these things? So luckily, there's a lot of people who had setups for them. But then I started thinking about it. I'm like, man, I got these in Buna over here, and they're shy as heck. They always go running back into behind the driftwood.
Yeah.
Every time I walk in the room, which I've never had that happen with Mbuna, I'm like, oh, then I got the idea. Let me throw 15 of them in the 75 gallon because those fish are oblivious. The Buenos Aires are oblivious to everything. They don't care. And they just swim back and forth. And I
They're really pretty in there
actually really enjoy them.
too.
And every other time I've had them, they've just wiped each other out.
Who knew?
In that tank, I think what's going on, that dynamic is they're always keeping an eye out below them because you've got the African cichlids there they're running that tank. So they're more concerned about, okay, is anything going to happen from down there, which nothing has, and they're leaving each other alone. They school tightly together. I mean, they really school tightly together, and they've been pretty good. Now, they're not the best. I still don't think they're the best looking fish in the world. They're silver with a little bit of red, but they have slightly changed my mind. And again, to me, that is like the perfect fish. If you have an African cichlid tank and you need some dither fish, you want some fish that just kind of school, those tiger barbs are really good, right?
Mm-hmm. My air doc says Buenos Aires as a dither fish. That's a new one.
I know.
I know.
But my gosh, has it worked out really well. And the fish that we got, they were big when we got them, the Buenos Aires. So they're not really going to get all that much larger in the tank that they're in now. So, ooh. How about those Niners? That's right. How about those Niners? They weren't so good last year, and they're my favorite team. So,
Nope.
And I'm not holding out a whole lot of hope for next year. I don't know what happened, but yeah. So anyway, secret to growing out an Oscar 15 plus inches. You're really, really pushing the max at 14, 15 inches, in my opinion. I've seen them that big. In fact, Ohio Fish Rescue had some in a, what was that tank? Like the 4,000 or 6,000 gallon tank that they had. They had a couple in there that were every bit that size. I would say massive, massive, massive tank, right? I mean, they're not, I don't think they're going to grow that big in your standard 6, maybe not even your 8 foot tanks. I think you need really, really large tanks, 8 foot for sure, a few hundred gallons. So for me personally, if I'm trying to grow a fish, an Oscar that large, I'm going to want probably a 300 gallon tank. That's 8 feet long and 24 inches wide at least and 30 inches tall. The second thing I'm going to want is high quality food and a lot of time and really great water parameters, because one of the things that happens to Oscars is, not you, but there's a lot of people out there who underestimate just how heavy their bioload is because they are heavy eaters. They wind up putting these fish in aquariums with other large cichlids, and a couple things happen. So one, the Oscars get bullied because they're not aggressive fish, and people think, well, just because they eat other fish that are smaller than them that they must be aggressive, but that's not the case. They're not usually all that aggressive, and so they get bullied by Midas cichlids and red devils and sometimes Jack Dempseys and certainly green and red terrors, and that can be a problem. So they stress out and they don't wind up living as long. So you got to eliminate that. You got to have them in an aquarium where they feel very, very comfortable and very secure. Again, people underestimate the bioload because they eat a lot, and so that means big time water changes, because a lot of times you get these larger Oscars that are in a heavy bioload tank and then they wind up with a hole in the head. They don't do well when those nitrates are constantly 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 100 parts per million over the course of years, right? It's one thing if you get a spike like, oh man, my nitrates spiked to 40 or 60 parts per million, but they're always that way. And then people wonder, why is my Oscar got a hole in the head? Well, what's your nitrate levels like? And it's not easy. It's not easy to keep nitrate levels that low with fish that large that eat as much as they do. So big tank, super awesome water parameters, high quality foods, and don't put them with fish that are going to be stressing them out and bullying them and chasing them around and having them have to really fight for their food and their territory.
Second floor says they would have to add the peacock bass to the list, as well as my absolute probably least favorite fish in the world, the giant gourami. Oh, way
Ooh.
too big for me to deal with. Yes, and giant gourami, they're just not attractive.
Yeah, well, they're so ugly when they get larger that they're almost desirable. In that way.
Not.
I could see. We're
Mm-mm.
gonna have to agree to disagree.
We can't.
I could see why
Can
someone
have
would be
it.
like, "Wow, that thing is hideous." I just love them so much. Look at those cheeks. What about Timmy? When we had our tilapia,
Well, yeah, I know.
I
but
would say that a lot
Timmy
of
was
people would have been
nice.
like, "That fish is kind of ugly. He had giant lips and just kind of." He
was-
was.
He was just a happy-go-lucky
His colors were
guy.
amazing, though.
He was very pretty, and I mean, it's
Yeah.
Timmy.
Yeah, I really like Timmy. Timmy was
Yeah.
a Nile tilapia that, again, another fish that I bought for a bag for $1 and wound up keeping the largest one. He wound up being 18 and a half inches and a 125. He grew faster than any fish. I did not know before we got that fish that a fish was capable of growing as fast as those were.
Yeah.
Those were another
Yeesh.
one where I got BAP. They were less than maybe an inch. And I got a group of 10. I'm like, well, my plan was nobody was buying them. I'm like, let me bring them back. I've got to swap in a couple of weeks. It was like maybe 3 weeks away. I'll throw them in a 10-gallon, quarantine them, and then I'll just move them to the swaps. I'll just move them super cheap because I didn't buy them for much. Well, within like 3 weeks, I'm like, holy cow, they're outgrowing this 10-gallon. And they were large enough where I could throw them in a 125. I'm like, I'm going to keep the largest one. Put him in a 125. He was that big. Within a year, he was a foot. Within 18 months, he was pretty close to 18 and a half inches. It was crazy. It was, but it was beautiful fish, very beautiful, and very friendly. Not aggressive at all. He got along well with our Oscar and everything else that was in there. Fish lover, best place to buy nanofish online? FlipAquatics.com. They are a channel sponsor. We love them very, very much because they quarantine their fish for 2 weeks, shrimp for 4, and that's going to maximize your success.
And they're just super great people. Really funny
Yeah,
too.
That's, again, we've said it a million times. We will not partner with people unless we think personally that they are wonderful people. Dennis, thank you for doing what you do sometimes, and that is gifting 5 new prime timers the prime
thanks,
timer
Dennis.
experience. Thank you for doing that. Really appreciate it. Always appreciate it.
All right. I forget who asked this. Somebody asked, "What's a prime timer?"
Prime timer is the name that we give. So when people do this whole like the gifting thing that we just saw, and they've got the little gold stars, at least they have gold stars over here. What do they have over here? They got the little Primetime Aquatics things. Those are like channel members, and so it's a group of people who are
There's
members
multiple
of,
names though.
No, there's only one. I've
Really?
only called them prime timers for like 2 years.
It hasn't been that long.
Yes, it has. So there's only one.
Really?
Should it-
Oh, you picked it?
Yeah, like 2 years ago. Prime timers.
I didn't get the memo.
Yeah.
You didn't send me a memo.
That's because you're not a prime timer. So
That is
they
true.
get to
I
pick
have
their own
never ever seen a video.
Yeah, but you haven't because
Because
you're
what
not a
does he
prime
say?
timer.
I'm not a prime timer.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's our little group, our little fun group of people, and then the prime timers, they usually get advance notice. So especially important for people who do the swaps and stuff. They get a couple day head start usually, and yeah, they get to pick a video, if they want. So we can pick a subject every week if they want to. Wander around the fish room, that kind of thing. So that's what they are. And now Oink pops up. Old school prime timer for the last 41 months. Thank you. I saw a platinum male betta today with fin tips only that were bright red. I adopt him to attempt rehab. What course of antibiotics should I try? I would go with the standard Maricin 1, Maricin 2, and keep an eye on the Maricin Oxy option. That's a liquid. So I would start with the Maricin 1, Maricin 2. And then if that's struggling for whatever reason, and I doubt it will, but I always have the Maricin Oxy with me because that's a really good one. In fact, I had a problem with the Viejas and Spilum, the 125. They got beat up by, of all things, a roseline shark that was just absolutely terrorizing them, and they were hurting. And I treated that tank for about a week with the Maricin Oxy, and they're almost totally healed up. So that's a good thing. All right. Let's see here. I saw.
Oh, Jarrett says, "How do you use Maricin if it kills beneficial bacteria?" Good question.
Yeah, unfortunately, It does. It can, especially what I recommend and what I do is when I have something that requires Maricin, I use them in combination. So I use the Maricin 1, Maricin 2 in combination. So we are targeting both gram-positive and gram-negative microbes, and there's no way around that. So if you have a fish, this is why when forever since the beginning of this channel, I have preached quarantining your fish, because you are going to have problems, always. I don't care what medication you use. All medications are going to be toxic to microbes, even the ones that say, okay, it's not going to harm your cycle. That might be true to the extent that some medications are far less toxic to the microbes than others, but all medications are going to stress out your fish. All medications are going to stress out the microbes in that aquarium. It's a medication. So when it comes to Maricin, any antibiotic, it's not just Maricin 1 and 2, it's any antibiotic that you use, and a lot of the antiprotozoals, the general cure, you're going to have problems. You're going to damage the cycle. And so what you're doing there is you're hoping that as you treat this tank, the medications you choose wisely and that works, and you get rid of this infection quickly so that you can get that tank off the meds, and then add things like the Fritzzyme 7 and the Fritz Turbo Start that's constantly re-adding those beneficial bacteria, allow the bacteria that are left in the filters and on the surfaces to repopulate. But this is why I always say a quarantine tank, that is so much easier to deal with. So it's really easy. If you wind up with an ammonia spike because you're using these meds, if I've got a 10-gallon quarantine tank, even if you don't have a siphon, how long does it take you to do a 90% water change in a 10-gallon with a pitcher? 10 minutes, 15 minutes? You're doing that in a 125, and then you crash your cycle there, and plus you got a bunch more fish in there. What a nightmare. So when at all possible,
What a nightmare.
quarantine, and know that almost all meds that you use are going to do something. And it's unfortunate, but it's either that or let the fish expire because they weren't treated.
Thanks, Noel. Yeah, I thanks for pointing out this question. All right, Orion DeWitt. I'm moving very close to your area soon, Glendale Heights,
Oh,
and was
nice.
hoping to get some recommendations for local fish stores. Yes, Noel is right. I did a video that's easiest, really. Last summer, I'll see if I can find it. I'll link it for you. That I actually, in one day, I was so excited about it. I went to like my top 4 recommendations in the same day. It was a road trip for me, myself, and I. And it was so fun to see them all on the same day. And yeah, so there's Fish Planet in Deerfield. There is Aquatics in
Lombard.
Is that Lombard? Okay. And then where else did I go?
Zuxai.
Zuxai in Elgin. And I also went to Greg's Woodstock, the Pond Guys.
But that's not a fish store.
It's not, but it's got plants. And it was summer, so if you like ponds and stuff, it's a must see. It's
it's a cool place. Don't get me wrong.
If you're in the area,
because
it's a
that's
must
out
see.
in
In
St. Charles.
St. Charles,
Yeah.
yes.
So
It's called Aquascape.
And those are the really strong stores, for sure.
Strong to very strong.
And you're going to be in the land of swaps, because now you've got the GCCA swap in Northbrook. You have the Greenwater Aquarius Society swap in Tinley Park. So, and if you want to venture out into Iowa, you got the Quad City swap for a really, really large one as well.
Yeah.
Lynn, holy cow, Lynn has been a prime timer for 53 months. I don't even know what is that now, for like 4+ years. I'm getting up there. A prime timer is someone with impeccable taste in their friends. That is absolutely true. So, yes, prime timers, you can define what it means.
Right.
I agree with you.
And wait, so you moved it. Sky. Yes, thank you, Sky. Prison Bettas is near us too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They're out in DeKalb.
But she moved.
Well, I know, but she's still in DeKalb.
She's
Just right down
maybe
the
she
street.
might be just like right around the corner.
Yeah. Yeah, Prison
Yeah.
Bettas, that's a good one too. Absolutely. And then second floor, thank you so much. You guys, they do a lot for this channel. Second floor, Shannon and Ryan, they
Oh my
do
gosh.
a lot for this channel. As do
they
does Noel
do.
and Oink.
Yep.
And, oh my
Zenny.
goodness. Yep. Yeah, you guys are all awesome. Really are. So, Ben, what's up, man? How about using Maricin along with Complete? Complete what? Are we talking about Complete? Complete? Fill me in, Ben. I know that's a half a name of something, but I'm sure it's something good.
Oh, Outside In Aquatics is here. Hey.
What's up?
This April Quad City swap is going to be a blast.
I wouldn't doubt that for 1 second.
Especially since I missed the last one.
Yeah, you did, and it was a fun time.
I bet it was.
Fritz Complete. Oh, yeah, you can do that, but the Fritz Complete.
Duh.
Well, yeah, but the Fritz Complete is it's not going to supply your beneficial bacteria. So you're going to want the Fritz Zyme 7 or the Fritz Turbo Start to supply all those microbes. Ooh, good question, Julia. Do mystery snails transmit ick? Ick stays
Julia?
not safe for snails, but I was told they shouldn't. They should be. My shirt's in the way.
Should
Sorry.
be transferred? Oh, that in my
lost
world,
my green
that
hands.
means transferred.
So one, ICX states that they're not snail safe. I don't. So first of all, I question that because everything I remember about ICX, and I use it. I've used it numerous times in snail tanks. I never had an issue, but it says on the bottle invert safe. So snails are invertebrates. I know it's shrimp safe, so I don't recall ever having an issue with ICX and snails. Two,
Lost
do
my
mystery
green
snails
hands.
transmit ick? The only opportunity that would be there is if the ick parasite was temporarily stuck somehow on the snail and then it wound up in a tank. But snails don't get ick like fish do, so they're not going to contract it and then pass it off to other fish. That being said, there's no way I would put anything in an aquarium that was contaminated with ick into another aquarium until that tank had been treated and disease-free for at least 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah. Andrew says, can meds be used in conjunction with aquarium salt? Quite often they can be, yeah. Just depends on the disease that you're treating, but aquarium salt and meds often do okay. And it also depends on the fish, right? So if I've got cory cats, if I have some of the loaches, snails, shrimp, they might be too sensitive with the salt, but provided that your fish are salt safe, sure. I've done that a lot of times, where you have, especially the live bearers, or to me, one of the easiest fish to treat for issues is our African cichlids, because you can dump the salt in there and also use the meds, and it usually works out pretty well. Matthew, thank you for being a prime timer the last 2 months. Good evening, guys. Thanks for the knowledge you share. Where should I purchase shrimp online, and how many for a 5.5? Again, that is Flip Aquatics wheelhouse all day, every day. That is how they started their business, and they've got it. I mean, I've listened when we've gone to the various aquashellas and stuff, and when Rob does his presentations, I often will go in there and listen to the things that he says, and there are a few companies I know that really, really have their process nailed down in terms of shrimp, quarantine, why they do it, how they do it to maximize your success. Now, for a 5.5 gallon, just get a half a dozen. They will replicate, and you'll get more. So I don't see a need to buy any more than 6. Oh, Ben, yeah, absolutely. Complete to control the ammonia spike. There you go. Yeah, that makes, sorry. I guess my brain's just not thinking today. Good point, Ben. Absolutely. So yeah, Fritz Complete will neutralize ammonia and nitrite if you're having an ammonia spike. In fact, Ben, I don't even know why I didn't think about that. When I talked about having an ammonia spike a couple years ago, I went through the whole thing about, hey, Fritz Complete, and you can temporarily lower the ammonia spike in addition to your huge water changes, and it's all going to be okay. But sometimes, as you know, the years pass by and the brain, well, not as you know, like it's happening to you, but me, because he knows me.
Yeah, as you can see here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Carol asks, what is the small size tank to use for quarantine?
You can go as small as you want as long as the fish have adequate space. So for quarantine, if it's little tiny nanofish, why not use a 2 gallon or 2.5 gallon? If you've got larger, more active fish, use a 5.5. We typically we had a lot of 10-gallon aquariums. So when this used to be a fish room and not the gallery, we had a whole mess of, like right where Joanna's head is back there in the back corner, we had 9 10-gallon aquariums, and the only job that those 9 10-gallon aquariums had was quarantine. And I stacked them end to end, so that was their job. Since that has been brought down, the entire other side of the fish room is more or less just quarantine now for shipments that we bring in. But a 10-gallon tank to me is a really good idea. Robert, great question. Is a UV light good? Now, here's the thing about UV light that I think sometimes gets missed in the mix. Well, I have one. So I have a UV light generator that, believe it or not, I almost never use. So, and here's why. UV lights are great if you are trying to prevent maybe an ick outbreak, right? So whatever you're trying to prevent, the parasite needs to eventually be in the water column, because the UV light is, the filter is just going to be sucking water in just like an internal canister filter would, running the water through, shining UV light. The microbes that go through there, the UV light hits them, destroys their genetic material, they die. They can't reproduce. So that's great. The issue is, if you already have something in the aquarium, chances are you're going to need the meds, because UV light, especially if it's bacterial, that's not going to do a whole lot. Maybe if it's ick, you could make an argument that it might be helpful, but now you're playing that game. Is it really going to get rid of the ick fast enough to not have my fish die? My point is, once you throw meds in the aquarium, they're all going to be deactivated by UV. So you can't do both. You cannot do both. If you take meds and you're using medications, ick meds, antibiotics, and you throw them in the water, and then you've got a UV light generator in there as well, that's a UV filter. All you're doing is you're taking those meds through UV filter, the UV is hitting them, destroying the meds, inactivating them, and now you've got a bigger problem. So now you're just wasting money on meds and they're not working. So just be really careful with the UV. They can be, so I've had filters, it's kind of gotten popular now for some makers. I think it was Aquatop was putting UV lights in their hang-on backs. I think at one point I had one. I think I still do. And then was it Sun? I think at one point I had a Sun canister that had a UV. It's not horrible. So it's just sucking in water, and as the water is being circulated, it's getting zapped with UV, and anything that would be in the water that could be a potential pathogen is being destroyed. But from the onset, I didn't have any issues. You got to be careful with those filters, because a lot of people buy these filters, a canister filter with a built-in UV light, or a hang-on back with a built-in UV light, and then they do wind up with a problem. They throw meds in, and then they just forget that there's a UV light in that aquarium, in that filter, and like I said, it's just destroying all the medications you're putting in. So in some ways, that can be kind of a pain if you have one of those. Hold on. Mr. Skip says there's also a swap, a Milwaukee Aquarium Society swap on this April 6th, March 23rd, September. So March 23rd, April 6th, and September 7th. That's cool. We haven't been to that one. We've talked about it. We've discussed it. Our problem is people ask us all the time, hey, how come you don't do more than quad, GCCA, and green water? And the problem is, even with all the quarantine tanks we have on the other side, we simply cannot keep the fish in stock. And so usually what winds up happening is the first two swaps in that cycle, from whatever shipment we brought in, got plenty of fish. By the time we get to the third swap, we are severely depleted. So adding in a fourth one, we don't have, if I had another 15 or 20 quarantine tanks, then that might work.
Boy says, I started out not knowing anything about aquariums, and you guys taught me everything I knew. Now I'm on the salty side.
Whoa,
it's time for
boy.
you guys to come along. Thank you.
Well, then you'd have to teach me some things, because I have never kept salt water in my life. I thought about it, but as I always say, I would pick the worst possible beginner stuff, because I'm only interested in keeping what I want. I'm not interested in learning how to keep salt water. I'm interested in just the fish I want to keep, and it would probably be horrible, because it'd be... Well, so if I could really pick, I've always said I want jellyfish would be pretty cool. Seahorses would be awesome.
Horse fishes,
but then I go off the rails. I'm like, I want an octopus. And so, yeah.
What's the smallest kind of octopus you could get? That would be fun.
I don't know, but...
Because you would absolutely have to do a tank with a sunken ship for him to play in and around and stuff.
An octopus is an extraordinarily good escape artist.
I know.
Like the people who are in charge of the octopus
They're
at
like
the public aquariums.
Clown killies with 8 arms.
What is wrong with you?
What?
Where did that come from?
What? What did I say?
How does that even make any sense?
What did I say? What did I say? I don't remember. What did I say?
Are you being serious right now? You heard what she said, right? And just to recap, what just came out of your mouth, if I understood it correctly...
the sunken ship or the clown killie?
That an octopus is like a clown killie with 8 arms.
Yes. Because they they will get out of a tank when there's just a tiny little opening. The clown killie will find it.
All right. Well, I had no idea where you were going with that. And I'm
No?
sure there's
Oh, no wonder you were
350
like,
people watching, and I am quite certain that 350 people are
okay.
like, what?
You don't have to understand me. It's all right.
Yeah. Holy cow. So there you have it. If you continue to learn, I mean, yeah, an octopus is a clown killie with 8 arms. And so now
So-
you know that. So
I am very curious though. What is the smallest type of
I have no idea.
octopus?
You're asking
I'm
the wrong
gonna
person.
I'm gonna be researching that one later.
Okay, good luck.
Stay
with
tuned.
that. JP, thank you so much for being a prime timer. Did I interrupt you yet again?
Yeah.
Okay, just keep your finger
Every
on
others,
your,
man.
yeah, okay,
Like
sorry.
parking spots. Every
JP,
others.
thank you for being a prime timer the last 16 months. What is a good small loach that eats? Oh, I got one for you. Eats trumpet snails. It's in our 50-gallon corner tank with nano grand fish in it. dwarf chain loach. They're not cheap. They stay extremely small,
They're
like about
tiny
an inch.
and cute.
So imagine like a tiger loach, only a little bitty guy, and you could easily throw in 10 or 12 in that 50-gallon. Trust me, they are tiny, but they do harass other bottom feeders. So you got to be a little careful there. If you have cory cats, they don't always mess with them, but there's a potential there for them to be a little bit territorial at times. So just keep that in mind.
All right, Nathan's asked, what tank size or setup do you guys recommend for pea puffies? And are they good in aquascapes? Yes, they are good in aquascapes. Generally, the rule is 5 gallons per pea puffy. So if you have one, have a 5 gallon. If you get more, you just keep adding 5 gallons. And I would give them lots of plants to, hover and swim through because, they can be a little stinkers. And you definitely want to, break up all the lines of sight and all. And it's just fun to see them swimming all around. So I personally like with pea puffies, Anubias. Varying sizes of Anubias because you'll see them going under the leaves, over the leaves. It's just tons of fun. And they're just unlike any other fish.
Yeah.
They're a bucket list nano fish with their
Yeah,
little
they're cool.
googly eyes. Love them.
Hunter, thank you very much for the super chat. Would you recommend a sponge filter for beginners? Sure. So if it were me, I have this kind of the standard rule of thumb where if I only got a couple tanks, 1 tank, 2 tanks, 3 tanks, I generally just gravitate towards the hang on back. I just find it to be an overall better filter in all aspects, right? Both of them are great at biological filtration, but the hang on back does such a better job of mechanical filtration, making your water appear clearer. And I would say I give the edge in terms of maintenance, being able just to pull out the filter floss on a hang on back just a little bit easier than a sponge filter, but the sponge filter is a perfectly acceptable option. But if you've got tanks that are heavily stocked, or you've got some fish with maybe a little bit of bioload, I would go towards a hang on back more than I would a sponge filter. But where the sponge filters get really economical is when you have a lot of aquariums like we do on the other side, where we've got 40 tanks in the fish room side, and that's the only way that we can run those things is using sponge filters. So, but yeah, it's not a bad choice. Lee, thank you very much for the super chat. Support good people, become a prime timer. Lee, thank you so much.
Hey, Lee.
And we'll be seeing you at one
Yeah,
of the
are you going to
swaps.
Greenwater?
No, he's not going to Greenwater.
No? I
Nope.
know Lush and Salty is going to be
You're not.
At,
You're not in the know.
at the Greenwater.
GCCA.
The Green of
In
Water.
April. We've got 2 in April. We got the GCCA and the Quad City back to back on Sundays. Yeah,
Sweet.
it's very cool. Hold on now. My chat over here is kind of stuck. So let me scroll.
Wait.
Hold on. Cody, thank you very much for the super chat. Hang on back or sponge filter for a 10-gallon betta tank? Ooh, now that
What?
is an excellent question because we got a complication here. We have a smaller aquarium. We have a betta. I'm assuming it's a male betta. So now we've got a fish that doesn't like to be blown around the aquarium. So here, the reason why it's complicated is because most hang-on back filters kick out a lot of flow, and sometimes a little too much flow for a betta, where a sponge filter, because the water is just going straight up to the top, and you can buy a very small air pump, it's easier sometimes to control that flow, so your betta is not going to get stressed out by having to swim against the flow. That being said, cost-wise, you're gonna be, if you don't have any air pumps at home, you have to get an air pump and a sponge filter. You might be spending almost as much as if you got, let's say, a Seachem Title 35, which I think is a great filter for a 10-gallon. In some ways, it seems like it would be a little bit too much, but that's got a really, really nice adjustable flow where you can adjust that flow down enough where it's not going to stress out your betta. So the question is, and of course, then you're not looking at the sponge filter, but the downside is the Seachem Title 35 has a fairly large motor inside the tank, but it's going to blend a little bit more. Just depends on what you want to look at. But I think either the Seachem Title 35 or a sponge filter would be good options. I would not get any type of hang-on back filter that does not have an adjustable flow. It's the downside actually of the Aqua Clears because they have an adjustable flow, but it doesn't adjust very well. What is so funny?
Diesel Weasel. Next t-shirt design. Clown Killy with octopus arms. That's right. And only all y'all are going to get it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. The only people that would know what that even is, they
That's
would look on
right.
the website like, what the heck?
Be like,
Who's
inside
gonna wear
joke.
this?
Inside joke.
People who watch the live stream, that's who.
We'll be like, oh, they sold really well. We sold all 8 of them. And it only took 3 months.
Yeah. All we've got left are these odd sizes, extra smalls, and yeah.
Oh, man.
All right, let me see here. We got some people voting. Sponge filter for me. I like the sponge filter. Good point, Tim. Yeah, the sponge filter for sharing the cycle in another tank. But you could do that with a hang-on back. All right, you could take, in fact, you could make an argument that the hang-on back would be even easier because you could take the floss out of the hang-on back and just plop it in another hang-on back. So.
Yeah. Oink, I assume your temperature, I know you had a fever a while back. I'm hoping that you are feeling better. This is a medical check. And then also Ryan, Second Floor Aquatics.
Yeah.
How's your hand?
Yeah, we need to know these things.
We need to know.
Alec, I am aware of my stupid decisions when it comes to saltwater. Yeah, so jellyfish need a circular tank, check.
Yeah.
Seahorses need live food, also check. Octopuses are escape artists. I'm not getting an octopus. I wouldn't know the first. That is like next level type of care, and I would never do that. However, yeah, the seahorses I'm not too concerned about because we hatch out live baby brine all the time. We can just make it real baby brine, or not baby brine, but actual brine shrimp.
What about Daphnia? Would they eat Daphnia?
I guess it would depend on the size of the seahorse.
I'm thinking I should have my own Daphnia tank. That's what I'm thinking.
Okay, well, have fun with that. You're allowed. You're definitely allowed.
May happen.
If you want to grow little critters, grow
Right?
little critters.
Yeah.
That's just how we roll around here.
They're sea monkeys.
Yep. Matt says sponge filter for energy savings. Yeah, the minute you can start running multiple tanks off of one air pump, that's why we do it here, because we've got one pump. It's a large one, but it runs sponge filters for 40 aquariums. I'm probably in those 40. I'm just kind of looking over there right now. Not 40 aquariums, not over there. We have 30 because we have 5. We have 40 total, so it's 5 here, 5 upstairs, 30 over there. So, and in those 30 aquariums, we've probably got 55 sponge filters, and works out really well. It's pretty cool.
Oh, Zenny says tank bred seahorses will eat frozen also.
Nice.
Wow.
Someday I will get a saltwater tank, and some of you are going to be like, huh?
You don't have any frozen baby brine, do you?
No, I don't. I don't have
I
any.
should try that for
The pea puffers.
fish.
Yeah, I'm so with the frozen foods. The frozen brine shrimp is fairly safe, but some of the other frozen foods have an opportunity, especially like frozen bloodworms. They can introduce disease into the tank. I used to get some bloating in some of my fish, and once I stopped feeding that stuff, it all kind of went away. And then you've got things like when I made that huge mistake with the krill. So I bought a big giant chunk. I mean, a big chunk of krill, and I'm cracking it off and I'm throwing it. This is back when this side was a fish room too. And I'm chucking it in all the tanks. When you're feeding 80 tanks, you're going pretty quick. And I get all the way to the wall over here, and I'd already fed the rest of the fish room. And I'm like, the whole time I'm doing, I'm like, man, something's wrong. Just something's not right. Yeah, dude, something's not right. You didn't rinse it. I didn't rinse the frozen krill. I don't know if you've ever fed krill from the big chunk of frozen krill before without rinsing it. Well, let me tell you what happens. Every one of those aquariums was just absolutely nasty. One, it smelled like fish, and two, it was all cloudy and oily, and I had to call the boys down and be like, guys,
please.
I'm sorry. Can you help me? We've got to do some water changes in all of these tanks. So we were up at night doing water changes in a bunch of tanks because, like a dodo bird, I fed a whole bunch of frozen krill without rinsing it off.
Bruce says, "Can the shirt say don't diss my fish?" Yeah, right.
Absolutely. I
And
think it has to.
maybe even it can say it 8 times too.
With
Get
the
it?
little arms.
Yeah.
Ooh, this is a good one.
Oh,
Fish lover, favorite 10-gallon schooling fish for Asian river scape. Ooh. Asian river scape. 10-gallon. I mean, you're getting rid of the bitterlings. Those are way too big. Maybe. What is the Sawa rasbora? Maybe. I don't know. That's the first thing that comes to my mind.
the rummy nose,
Yeah.
Mr. Fancy Pants.
Yeah.
In a 10-gallon, you know what?
Asian biotope though.
Yeah,
Rice fish.
that's what I was first thinking.
Yeah. There's some really cool rice
would-
fish. We had the.
Yeah, but they generally, I always picture them towards the top, and if you have, so it depends how tall the
No, rice fish are all over the place.
I
fish.
know they are, but I picture
Yeah, I
them
like
at
that.
the
I
top.
like that, Sky. Rice fish are pretty darn cool. 10-gallon hill stream loaches. I don't know about a 10-gallon. And then you'd maybe threadfin rainbows. Okay. I like it.
Mm.
That could
That's
all work.
That's
Yeah.
something that I'm gonna probably be pondering,
Oh boy. Now you got her thinking about stuff.
right?
Don't do that. That usually means some other aquarium is popping up somewhere in this house. And that, my friends, is how that happens. That's how this
Pretty
happens.
much.
You know, everybody's like, I wish my significant other was in the fish hobby. Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mary says smallest octopus is the wolfie octopus,
Okay.
about 1 centimeter in length and weighs about
Oh.
1 gram.
I think I remember that. Yeah.
And then somebody else, I think, said that there's one that's like 1 inch. Maybe that's the same kind, but it only lives like a year. That would be really
yes,
sad.
yes.
And can
yeah,
you
I
imagine
recall
having
that.
that tiny of an
Yeah.
octopus? You'd have to have like booby trapped, so the
Booby
little sucker
traps? You're gonna
doesn't
hurt your
come out.
octopus?
No, it just gets them back in. It's like a little slingshot or something. It gets out and zoom,
Yeah.
slings them back in.
Michelle, great question. Would dwarf chain loaches bother gobies? I think there's a chance that it could happen. I'm not saying it would, but gobies are typically going to be somewhat goofy, inactive at times, chilling on the bottom, and you got the dwarf chain loaches, which can be more active and a little bit more boisterous down there. So, yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily a combination I would choose. That's a good question.
Oh, oink. Yes, we are on the same wavelength. It will happen.
What happens?
Nothing.
Okay, nothing happens.
You don't need to know.
That's the wavelength.
You
A whole
don't need to
lot
know.
of nothing. All right, I think we got time for 1 or 2 more, right?
You said that you should set up a mud skipper tank. Remember, does Sawa still have them?
I have no idea.
He was the mud skipper guy.
Yeah.
They are
Uh,
cute.
Yeah, we would need
Love 'em. Mm.
to do
A
that.
vivarium.
In my
Oh.
opinion, to do that right, not necessarily to do it right, but what I would want to see is a rather large frag tank,
Mhm.
bigger than the low boys. It's got to be at least twice the size of a low boy,
Oh,
where you've got a center area
yes.
that could be used as a nesting, a basking place.
Yes.
But
Oh my gosh.
then the
They're
issue
so cute.
is the other side of that is you might very well need a paludarium style, because I don't know if you could maintain the proper humidity
Mhm.
in the basking area.
Yeah, I
I
don't
haven't
know.
kept them, so
Yeah.
I don't know. Just thinking it through. Jeff says, can you keep 2 honey gouramis and a dwarf gourami in a 29-gallon community tank? No.
Mm.
The dwarf gourami is the issue. Dwarf gourami is a fish that, if it's going to be a gourami, it needs to be solo. So it will absolutely terrorize most likely the honey gouramis. You can do the 2 honeys, no problem. In fact, in a 29-gallon, I might do 6 honey gouramis. That would be cool. And here's the even cooler part. 3 orange,
Yeah.
3 standard honeys, and 3 yellow honeys. Oh, man. you're going to have a cool tank. Forget the dwarf. Or just do the dwarf on its own. You know. And the other issue with the dwarf gouramis, I know a lot of people here have had problems with the dwarf gourami disease, where they just kind of waste away after you bring them home. They look really nice at the pet store. You bring them back, and they just kind of fade on you. And people try to treat those fish all the time, and with some success periodically. But honey gouramis typically don't have those issues. There he says, Joanna says zany things like that all the time. That's what makes her my favorite YouTuber.
Aw,
She says some things, that's for sure. But you know,
I do.
you just got to roll with it. Yeah.
Just smile and nod.
Smile and nod,
Smile and
boys.
nod.
Smile and wave.
Smile and wave, boys.
Does anybody know what that's from? I think
Somebody has
do you
to.
know how offended I was in school? And it
No.
slipped out of my mouth. I actually called my students pathetic the other day. I was like, man, you guys
The
are
youngsters, they don't get a
pathetic.
quote.
Sky, Madagascar, yes. But
Very good. Very good.
one of my students said that they wanted to be, I do these reviews on Kahoot, and they were like, I want to be number one. I'm like, you'll be just like Smitty Werber Man Jensen. Don't tell anybody.
I'm not going to tell. They didn't know that,
24 students.
but he was number one.
Smitty Werber Man Jensen. And they're looking at me. These are my students. They're like 20 years old. How do they not know who Smitty Werber Man Jensen is? One student. Then, this was on Monday. On Tuesday, I'm like, oh, I got to do an experiment. I went to my other class, and I said, just out of curiosity, does anybody know who Smitty Werber Man Jensen is? One dude.
One dude?
There was one girl in my micro class.
What'd
and
they
one
say?
Dude.
What was their response? They didn't say
No, they
he
said
was
the
number
name.
one.
Well,
they didn't say he was number one.
um,
They should have said that as a response.
Well, Jonathan knows.
He was
and
number
Max knows.
one.
Yeah, so that's awesome. You know, that's the kind of stuff. By the way, we're going to do a giveaway next week. That's the kind of stuff that I think we should do. Is what number was Smitty Werber Man Jensen? You know, questions like that.
Yes.
You know,
Those
that
would be super
interesting.
advanced
There'd
and
be,
make
you know,
a lot
instead
of
of having
people
like
mad.
67,000 people type in a number, you'd have like one person being like trying to Google this
What
before
number
somebody else Googles
was
it fast. You'd be
Smitty
like,
Werber
what the?
Yagen?
Yeah, spell that one. Somebody was trying to
Smitty.
Google it.
Werben. I used to say Smitty Werber Man Jensen, but it's not. It's Smitty Werben Man Jensen because I looked it up.
They couldn't spell it, so they couldn't look it up. That was what the funny part was.
That's right. They wouldn't be able to
All right,
spell it.
everybody. On that happy note,
Uh,
I mean, because it's happy, it's SpongeBob. I mean, how much happy can you get? Go watch some SpongeBob before you go to bed tonight. Watch some SpongeBob, and think about the clown killie with eight arms. Was it? Yeah, that
Yeah.
would be awesome. But thank you for being here. Thank you to our moderators for hanging out with us. Thank you to everybody else for all the new membership donations and the super chats and stickers and everything, and for all the great questions. We're going to be back same time, same place next week. I do want to do a little highlight of some of the cool stuff that we've got. I'll get some video and everything before next week because there are some really kind of unusual fish that we've got happening. So thank you for being here. Have a great weekend. And we will see you next week.
See ya.
Bye-bye, everybody.